Hello and welcome to another episode of Ready, Real Estate and Divorce Plus You. This is where we take a dive into everything regarding real estate, divorce, related issues, mortgages, financing, anything that we can provide or bring different experts and professionals to come and talk to you about different aspects of your life when considering a divorce or even going through a divorce. Well, something this time of year that's a really hot topic, at least in my industry as a divorce lawyer, I'm getting a lot of calls regarding summer parenting time, whether it be the actual summer schedule or it be vacations for the summer or different types of things. And those are generally from people who've already been divorced, whether it's a fresh divorce or divorce after several years when you have kids, because plans change, life changes. And sometimes those judgments of divorce or agreements have a mechanism or some sort of instructions on how to deal with unanticipated changes or even anticipated changes, different life stages, different events, different things that go on. And how are you going to deal with it? Are you going to exchange dates at a certain point of time? Are you going to go back to a mediator? Or are you going to have to file a motion and get before the judge? And it depends on what the situation is. A lot of things we have now are people maybe because of their work schedule get a different vacation time all of a sudden than what they were supposed to have before. Or somebody's getting 2 weeks off instead of 1 week off, and the judgment only calls for 1 week of vacation time.
Or the kid wants to go to a different camp than they have in the past.
That's
that
a very good point. Yeah, camps,
Camps are huge.
and sports camps, religious camps, whatever it may be.
Ooh, the religious ones are out of state. Some decent ones are in Ohio, some are in Virginia. If you're looking at the Christian aspect, they're all over the place. So, and as the kids get older, the timeline changes. Like when our child goes, she goes to one specific camp, and it was always a week. Now that she's of age, now she can be a junior camper, and she can go for 2 weeks, which would change a whole parenting schedule.
Yeah. And listen, a lot of times, well, we would hope that a lot of times parents can get along and figure it out and be in agreement. Unfortunately, most of the time, or at least when they're calling me, it's because they can't agree and they don't have an agreement. And what do you do about that? So usually if they have reasonable counsel and we can all sit down and come to some sort of agreement, that's usually the most cost effective and smoothest way to do it. Otherwise, somebody has to file a motion or go to mediation and try to resolve it with the help of a mediator. And most of the time, that's better to do than having the judge make a decision based on limited information. By limited information, I mean the judge isn't going to have as much time to spend getting to know you and your child's specific needs and all of that to try to help come up with an idea that makes sense for everybody, as opposed to just issuing a ruling.
But wait, Jeff, isn't it like if there's an issue with parenting time and you need it, the summer's only a couple months, by the time you'd even get in front of a mediator, wouldn't the summer be over?
Well,
I was thinking about that.
Point. That's a good point. A lot of mediators are booked out for 2 to 3 months.
Yes,
you're right.
So it's like,
sometimes it might be filing an immediate motion in order to try to get, obviously first you should try to work it out with the other side.
Right.
But in the event that that's not successful, obviously call your lawyer, see what you could do. And you're right with scheduling and with timelines and being able, and don't forget too, judges take a lot of vacations in the summer. So there's a lot of judges that you might not be able to get in front of right away.
But you're a mediator, so they can just call you. I mean, you could easily, be that person.
I prefer that the parties each have counsel if I'm going to mediate. I don't necessarily like to mediate for parties that don't have counsel already. So, but in situations like that, yeah. And sometimes people's work schedules change in the summer. Sometimes, depending on where they live and their situation, maybe it makes more sense to have more summer parenting time with the kids. But get in quickly if you need any changes for the summer and you're not able to get an agreement.
Keeping the communication open when we have to. So Anna last year went to NASA. So I applied. So if she went in summer 2022, I applied for a NASA camp for her November 2021.
Wow.
Just to get in, and when we were waitlisted, maybe I did it October, September of 2021 because it happened so quick. And we were waitlisted. I didn't find out until 2 weeks prior that someone dropped out and we could send her. And to send a minor to Huntsville, that's a show in itself. So to have that open communication with the other person, or having that mediation and having that way of speaking of, okay, this is what our child is interested in, because there's a lot of planning that goes into some of these camps. I turned to Ken, I'm like, oh, this is a financial thing. We have to make a decision. They gave us 24 hours so they can move to the next person. And Ken's like, yep, this is a once in a lifetime chance. She got in and she absolutely loved it, but it took time. It was a week camp to fly down there, get everything organized, but that communication has to be there. Not to mention, you have to tell the airlines who's responsible. So I made the mistake of saying I was the one picking up Anna when something in my life almost prohibited me from picking her up. She almost was stuck at Delta that morning, which was really crazy because I did not think to put the other spouse on, or thinking even divorce, to put that person on and able to let the kid go, which would change. They have to take off of work, and that communication is huge.
So the moral of the story in all of this is just try to keep the communication lines open and be grown adults and try to negotiate it beforehand. Of course,
not that easy.
I know.
No, but
it's not that easy, but it's really important for stuff like that to try to do that. I mean, to speak into, to reality, because sure, you love getting paid and everybody comes to you, but just everybody loses that route.
No, I would rather that they come to an agreement on their own. And listen, there's a lot of judges, especially in my opinion, the experienced judges and the judges that probably truly care about the families and the children. They'll do everything possible to try to get the parents to reach a resolution on their own. And in my opinion, a lot of times that's a good judge. There are unfortunately, some situations they have to step in and rule because it's just not going to work. But most of the time, they're going to try to get you to make an agreement on your own regarding your child. And just know, when you make an agreement, it's just like when I mediate. If both sides are equally unhappy, then that probably means it's the good result.
Fair.
And usually you don't want to. A lot of times, you don't want a judge making a decision regarding your child based on a brief that was submitted and maybe a couple-minute argument before the judge. If you could work through it with the help of hopefully without the help of anybody, but if you need the help of your lawyer, the help of a mediator, that's usually when the best resolution makes sense. And if everybody can feel like they won, that's usually the best case scenario, in my opinion.
So if we back it up just a second, Jeff, because I've been through this process, so I know how it goes. Well, for my situation, would you say most people, they don't have the same maybe schedule? Like they could have a schedule if they're on that 80-20 where one parent's only doing every other weekend and one night during the week. They typically,
which is very rare these days. It's mostly equal overnight schedules.
So does it change then in the summer? Or if you're getting 50-50, would it just stay the same?
It depends. For example, the other day I got a call from somebody whose spouse works, or ex-spouse, the other parent of the child works in Canada, and one parent works in the west side of the state, for example. Or I think that was a scenario with them. And west side of the state of Michigan. So what happened is, I think in that situation, the parent that was in Michigan got the majority of the school years. The other parent would get the majority of the weekends, extended holidays, and the majority of the summer. Well, I think they were considering, or the parent who lives in Canada was considering maybe taking a job in Michigan. In that case, obviously the parenting time would have to be revisited and checked out. But there's different situations too where people's schedules change seasonally or quarterly or even monthly. Sometimes police officers, firemen, different first responders, even physicians, their schedules will change. And so what happens is sometimes the agreement might say, hey, we're going to exchange as soon as your schedule comes out, send it to me, and then we'll figure it out. Now, obviously, that's a lot of work, or there might be some sort of rotation or something. But you're right. Yeah, regarding summers, it definitely could change. But usually, the best thing is an original judgment divorce. And I know it's hard to anticipate everything, but say, hey, if we're going to try to exchange and try to resolve this by, for example, April 15th every year or whatever date. And if we can't, then we agree that we're going to go sit down with such and such mediator and see if we could do it on our own.
So I have a question coming into this this meeting is, if the parents come together and they actually they're co-parenting very well and they want to change this summer, do they have to notify the court? Is this a big thing, or can it just be the same and they'll just switch it for them until school starts and it just goes right back to what it was?
If they agree, they could do whatever they want if they agree. A lot of judgments of divorce will say that the parties are going to mutually agree, but if they don't, here's the default. Okay. But if somebody, I'd have it memorialized some way or another, and ideally, and the best way to do it is through a court order, and it could be a consent court order you send to the judge. Judge usually signs off on it unless they think it's not in the best interest of your children. But what could happen is two parents could say, yeah, hey, here's what we agree to. It's not memorialized anywhere. It's not written down anywhere. One parent gets mad at the other, call the police or file a motion to show cause or whatever it may be and show the last known order. Well, a court speaks through its orders, and there's a lot of judges, they'll say, we speak through our orders. There's not an order that says otherwise, so it's going to revert back to this. Give your kid back or whatever it may be. So it's always best to have a court order. Okay. But there's situations, listen, just anything that the two parents can agree on usually can do as long as it's in the best interest of their child. But the best thing to have is memorialize it with a court order. Because a lot of times, for example, people might have a certain pattern that's different. And then one of the parents gets a new significant other in their life.
Just going to bring that up.
That could influence them or say, hey, why are you doing this schedule? My kids are on this weekend or whatever.
That's to sync up the schedules with the kids.
Yes. The big deal is if you get remarried or if you're dating someone, they want to have no kids on this. Well, clearly, right? So that's the thing. The other parent, sometimes it doesn't have that situation, may have to be, I've had to just kind of let it go and be like, sure, I could switch weekend.
But listen, it could be the opposite.
To keep all the kids together.
It could be to keep them together. And I've seen other situations where it's the opposite, where it's to keep them separate and be able to give them each individualized attention, I guess, when other ones aren't
there. Or they're
there.
not getting along.
Yeah, or that.
That happens.
Probably. Yeah, we could do a whole show on that.
So in those situations, when somebody new comes in the picture and maybe might influence the one parent to do something, well, if there's not a court order, it's going to be pretty tough. Obviously.
It's going to get sticky.
Yeah.
How much does the kid actually have to say into this? Do they really have any?
Usually not at all.
What's the age? Is it 14 or 16?
There's no real age.
Okay.
But usually, sometimes at a certain age, a judge will say, hey, listen, I'm not going to force the kid to go here or there. But most of the time, they want the kids to, the kids don't really have a say in it. Because a lot of times, kids are easily influenced with whoever's house they're at or whoever could buy them something.
Who's the funnest?
Yeah, yeah. And if one parent doesn't have rules at their house and they're a teenager, that's probably the parent's house they want to be at.
But the child support issue. So if the kid doesn't want to go with a parent and is always with one other parent, then you've got an issue of, well, the child support was set up based on this many days. That's probably when it becomes more sticky because the parents are like, great, you can stay with me all the time. But maybe they go back and say, can we adjust this? Because now I have the burden of everything all the time.
And that could be
child care, all the things that kids are expensive.
And child support's supposed to be based on the number of overnights. So obviously it could get recalculated. But that's why if you're deviating from what your last order was, it's always good to enter a new order for what the actual parenting time schedule that you're exercising is, because then you're right, it could correlate with child support and
so many things. It's like a domino thing. So there's so many. So what I'm hearing and what I think makes sense is what you're saying is put as much as you can in writing, try to ascertain what these different scenarios could be. How could our lives change? There was a lot of things in my divorce decree that when we got divorced hadn't happened yet, but things like overnights weren't allowed. If you were dating someone, that person couldn't be there, because the kids were. So we had things like that put into it, just kind of coming up with what could potentially be an issue. But you can't obviously plan for every single thing, but as much as you can, it's a good idea to put things in place so that when they come up, like you said, you just read what it says.
I like the term. I never heard that term before, by the way, memorialize it. So I don't know if I heard you say that before.
Yeah, but it's a good, I like it too. I was like, oh, that's a good term.
So, it's May.
You said it a few times.
Why he is who he is. He's not just a pretty face over there.
There's a problem. You're running into an issue with your, and you can't get on the same page. What's the first thing that they should do? And we may have already kind of spoke into this, but if a couple wants to get something, next month is school's
probably
out.
Contact your lawyer right away. I mean, I've had people even yesterday call me, hey, I tried talking to the other parent. We don't agree yet. I say, hey, just send me your judgment of divorce. Obviously, if I had represented them in a divorce, I probably already have it. If not, I tell them, send me a copy of it. Let's read and see what it says. Have there been any subsequent orders? Have you been to court since then? Has the judge issued any rulings since then regarding parenting time? Let me see those. And we look at it and see what the language calls for. And then a lot of times we reach out to the other side. If hopefully they have an attorney already, and we can find out who that is to contact their attorney. Otherwise, we contact them and say, hey, if you have an attorney, have your attorney call us. And we try to reach some sort of agreement. In the event that we can't, then we have to get it in front of a judge. But timing is an issue with that. So, and depending on which county you're in, sometimes you can get quicker than you can in other places.
Yeah, that's always been an issue. I mean, even when I was divorced 11 years ago, it'll be 11 years next month. But it was, an issue of trying to get back on the docket.
Was that called a divorceReady? DivorceReady.
Yeah,
That's
divorceReady.
it.
I mean, I want to sound like, oh, yay. But it is a memorialization in my life. It's, a big change happened. And, so yeah, it's something I look at. I'm like, I can't believe it's been over a decade. It's crazy.
It has been crazy. Because I remember when you first came in after everything happened, and it does not seem like 10 years ago.
Right?
Yeah.
The other things that happen during summer, other than vacations, there's also during the school year when there's birthday parties and different things, they might be in the evening, on the weekends. These certain parties, certain things may be taking place during the day. One parent might be more available than the other parent to take them. So it's not just necessarily the actual parenting time schedule. It could be certain events. It could be weddings. For example, I have a situation where one of my former clients is getting remarried now and wants to be able to take the child with them. The other parent's saying no. And that's a whole issue. So get in as quick as possible if you're doing that. And it's going to be on some island for, at least a week-long trip. So those are things to think about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A good deal.
It was a good talk.
Yeah.
Good talk. So we just want to thank all our listeners for tuning in again. If this is your first time tuning in, or even if it's not, please make sure that you tap that subscribe and
the bell.
The bell. The subscribe
ding.
bell. So like us so that we know you're here. And we can keep you updated on what's coming.
Is it really a bell? A bell
is.
icon?
It's a little
What
bell.
Oh, I
Is
didn't
it
even know
gray?
that.
Are you not
Pay
liking us?
attention. I should pay attention.
Yeah,
I don't think you
in.
go around hitting bells on YouTube. Ding, ding, ding.
He's going to be subscribing to everything from now on.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you need more notifications on your phone?
There's already.
Oh, yeah. And thank you. And turn on those notifications.
Yes.
Who wouldn't want to, you don't want to miss us.
Yes.
Turn on the
of course
notifications, tap the bell, like us, do it all.
Yeah, you can
Do it
listen
all.
to us on your ride home from work,
Absolutely.
So, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well,
All right.
we'll
Thank
see
you.
everybody next time.
Yes.
All right. Take care.